You're listening to the Wanderlusting Wives podcast, your podcast for escaping life's monotony, indulging in your wildest travel fantasies, and discovering the constant beauty of this ever-changing world.
On today's episode, Todd Bensley joins us to share stories of losing a wallet in Spain, nerve-wracking encounters with Bison in Yellowstone, and more.
Welcome to the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. We are your navigators, Allison
and Regan. And today is another Travel Tuesday, so we're ready to jump back into another conversation about travel and stories that come out of travel. And we have a special guest today. It's actually going to be Allie's dad, Todd, and we're really excited to have him, and we'll officially introduce him in just a moment. But before that, of course, just another reminder to go ahead and check out our not-so-new Wanderlusting Wives website at www.wanderlustingwives.com, and you can find everything about us. You can learn more about us and our travels, and get some quick and easy links to our other episodes and things like that. Just really stay up to date with us. Allie, any updates or anything on your end?
Just the usual from me. Make sure you're following us on social media. Instagram is at Wanderlusting Wives, Facebook, Wanderlusting Wives Podcast, Twitter at Wanderlust Wives, and then you're always welcome to email us, and that is wanderlustingwives@gmail.com.
Sweet. So we are all over the map, and get connected with us, get plugged in wherever you can find us. So awesome. As we said, we do have Allie's dad here, and Allie, I would like to let you do the official intro for him.
All right, this is different, so here I go. So like Regan said, this week's guest is my dad. I guess we can call him Todd. That feels weird, but that is his name. He's been on the podcast before, talking all about France in season 1. So if you want to learn more about France, check out that episode. But my dad has been traveling forever, it seems like, and he's taking me along on some of his travels as well, and he's here to share all about his travel experiences. So without further ado, Dad or Todd, whatever we're going to call you, do you want to say anything about yourself, or just jump right into your travel stories, whatever works best for you?
I just want to say thanks for having me back again. I enjoy listening to the podcast, and I have come to like being a part of the podcast as well. So I look forward to our conversation today.
We're happy to have you back. Yeah.
Yay! So yeah, we can just go ahead and jump right in here with whatever you've got for us. I'm excited to see where the conversation takes us.
Yeah, I am too. I was trying to do some brainstorming last night with my wife and trying to remember some of the things. And there's certainly some things that kind of stuck out. And I started doing a little bit chronologically, but I think I kind of fell off of that. But I'm going to start with one from my childhood. We didn't do a whole lot of traveling as kids. But one time we did go to Canada's Wonderland, which is a theme park in just outside of Toronto. We had a great time. It was the 80s, so Van sneakers were in, and wearing your Vans without any socks was also in. Apparently, I had done a little too much of that because at the end of it, at the end of the night, they had fireworks there. And we watched the fireworks, and my family discovered some sort of strange smell that they didn't want to be a part of anymore. And they told me I had to leave my shoes behind. So I have a pair of old Van sneakers somewhere in Canada, and made it all the way back across the border and back to my hometown without any shoes on because my feet apparently stunk so much, or my shoes did anyways. So that's kicking us off with the first story here.
Oh my gosh. I wish that Allie had been around for this story so that I could get her feedback on this, or rather feedback.
I was actually hoping this story would come out because I've heard it a million times, and I'm glad we're starting off with this one because now I know where my stinky feet come from.
It's Genetic. Okay, we're seeing.
Yep.
We're getting some stuff here.
Yeah.
Getting the dirt.
Yeah.
One other one from my teenage years. I somehow convinced my parents that I would be okay driving with a friend all the way down to Florida when I was 17, just the two of us. He was a couple years older than me. He was going to be going into the military, and we worked together at a grocery store. And he said, I'd like to take one more trip before I leave to go in the military. So my grandmother actually had a place out just outside of Orlando in Florida that she would go to for the winter, but she wasn't there in the summertime. So we got the bright idea that we would drive down to Florida. And again, somehow convinced my parents that this is a good idea that a 17 and 19-year-old take to the road and drive down to Florida. Um, so we drove, and the first night we ended up in South Carolina, and of course, not old enough to get a hotel, not smart enough to get a hotel or motel or something like that. And we decided we were just going to pull into a parking lot behind a shopping center and sleep in our car. So I wouldn't recommend it, but it worked out fine until the morning when I decided to get out of the car and managed to step with my once again bare feet, this time into a pile of fire ants.
Oh.
No.
Yes, not recommended either. So that was not a good sensation, but it didn't last too long. But definitely learned my lesson when I'm in the South to look down before I end up putting my feet on the ground. So we ended up driving, got to Florida, had a great time. Drove all around Florida as far as down south as Miami, just going wherever we felt like going for almost 2 weeks. Again, pre cell phone, any of that stuff. So parents really didn't know what we were doing on a day to day basis, where we were going, and we were going from one coast to the other, southern tip to northern tip, and just kind of having a really good time, the two of us. And then we were supposed to be gone about 2 weeks, but after about 10 days, we're both just kind of like, okay, I think we've had enough. Let's go home. So we decided to turn it around and go home. And we were driving back, and we decided, let's just drive all the way from Orlando without stopping. So we're not going to stop for the night, not going to sleep or whatever. So we threw in a cassette tape because that was the time period of cassette tapes, and we decided we were going to listen to just this one cassette tape the whole time. So we just put the pedal to the metal. And by the way, the other guy didn't drive. He was 19 but didn't have his license, so I had to do all the driving. So it took us, as I recall, about 19 hours. I'd have to do a map search to see if that was very fast driving or what, but seemed pretty fast to get from Orlando back to Western New York. But we got back all in one piece and had some great stories.
Oh my gosh. I want I want to know what the cassette was to know like how annoyed you were by the time you got home.
I still listen to it all the time. It was actually the Violent Femmes, and their one album that was titled Violent Femmes. And I just, every time I hear any of the songs, I go back to that trip. And yeah, I had it pretty well memorized by the time we got home.
Sounds like Regan and I missed out on our little gallivanting trip. We're far beyond 16 or 17 years old. But I was supposed to be running in my jeans here, but I guess I just got the stinky feet and not the random spontaneous 2 week trip without my parents knowing my whereabouts.
Yep.
I think
Well,
we can blame technology, Allie, because I remember my mom talking about how they went to Europe and were just like, okay, we're going to do whatever we feel like. And it had to be spontaneous because you couldn't just Google things. And this, the same thing, like you mentioned before, cell phones. You can't Google where you're going to go. You're just going to hit the road and go. I think we missed out, and I want to blame technology, Allie.
All right, we can do that.
Also, it's not too late. Let's do it.
Okay, let's do
you
it.
can always pull a Thelma and Louise when you get older too. So
Yeah, didn't they drive off a cliff or something?
yeah, I wouldn't recommend that part of it, but
Note to self. Okay, got it.
So this next story comes from my conversation with my wife about, what am I going to talk about? And the details apparently are a bit fuzzy because she thought we were on one trip, I thought we were on another trip, but uh, the reality was it was just the two of us before we had kids, and we were coming home, and uh, we were both very, very, very tired, like to the point that probably shouldn't have been driving at that point, just trying to stay awake or whatever. And we were down around Corning, New York area, and on an expressway. And again, this dates me, but all of a sudden the car in front of us had the tape from a cassette tape attached to its antenna. So it wasn't like they meant to do it. It somehow just got tangled up on an antenna. And we couldn't stop laughing at just the ridiculousness of this cassette tape just like blowing in the wind in front of us. And if we hadn't been tired, it wouldn't have been funny at all. We just kind of, smirked maybe and went on with our day. But we just couldn't get enough of this cassette tape just blowing in the wind. And again, that dates us a bit because of the technology upgrades from since then. But yeah, that's my next little tidbit of a story. But again, no other details because it was too fuzzy. We decided to agree to disagree on where we were or what we were up to, but we know we were coming home at that point.
I feel like it is those moments that kind of make a trip though. Those are the moments that make like when you're journaling about a trip or something, like those stick out, especially when you're super tired and they're like funnier or like sadder, like anything than they usually would be, but because you're tired and because you're traveling, they're just like gonna stick with you forever. I think those moments are some of the best. That's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. I don't recommend driving when you're tired, but definitely do some silly things when you're tired. They will definitely be remembered. Let's see. Going from there, I know you guys talked about it on one of your other episodes, but when we went as a neighborhood to Basel's Hideaway, just over the Canadian border, it was like the first trip that all of us kind of really got together, and we all came together as several families. And if my memory serves me correctly, that was the beginning of the Noodle Olympics as well. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, our neighborhood for several years we competed as families in the Noodle Olympics, and it started at this Basel's Hideaway campground that we started to compete. So it's called the Noodle Olympics because we literally had a pool noodle that was turned into, I believe, by Regan's mom into an award. So it was taped together into a circular format, and you got to put your names on it whenever you won. So just always great memories when we get to travel with friends and family, and Regan's family in particular. We've done quite a bit of traveling with them, and us parents still continue to do those things, and always a great time with lots of great stories as well.
I always love that story because it's really like where all of our friendships kind of started. I love that. That's like the pinnacle of travel stories, meet like leading to life change in a way of like life changing friendships and everything. And I find that really cool. And also, Allie, back me up here. I would just like to say if there are any stories coming that have to do with your shenanigans on a cruise or a different trip with my parents, let's keep it to PG.
I was thinking the same thing. I said when he said trips with Regan's parents, I was like, oh no, I hope we don't go there.
There are some good ones though.
We will not have a recorded record of those, so we can protect the innocent who
That's
are our
it.
children. So,
Yeah, good.
Thank
yes,
you. We appreciate it.
lots of fun. So
Aw.
for my next travel memory, we had taken a family trip out west, and one of the places that we went to was Yellowstone, and we had driven around Yellowstone and seen quite a bit of different animals and things like that. But as we were leaving the Yellowstone. We were headed towards Billings, Montana, and we had the quintessential experience of having the bison crossing the road as we're trying to go through the area, and we are stopped forever with just bison all around us. It was really, really cool. I wasn't going to bring up this part of it, but Allison looks like she's mortified, so I will bring up this part of it. So our son Jacob was basically hanging out the window to be able to take a picture of the bison up close. And as you probably heard from news stories and all that, it's very difficult, or it's very dangerous to be close to the bison. So I'm going to ask Allison to reprise what she had to say to her brother when she thought that he was maybe getting a little too close to the bison as he's hanging out the window.
No, get in the car, Jacob. It's not worth it.
Exactly. Nailed it.
That's such an Allie thing to say. Like,
Well,
I
they
can
were
picture this.
They were like huffing and puffing, and my brother just seemed like he was gonna hang out the window for a while. So I was not about to be on the CNN latest breaking news with our car being attacked by the bison. So there I said it.
Oh my goodness. Yep, I can totally picture that happening, and it makes total sense that Jacob was the one hanging out the window and you were the one saying that.
Yep.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. And so to continue on with that, so the bison finally clear out enough that we can continue to drive on. And we were headed to Billings, Montana. Now, on the map, what I saw was basically a straight line going between Yellowstone and Billings, Montana. What we ended up doing was a lot different. And it's not because we got off the beaten path. We were on the right road, but we didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. If you've ever traveled out in that area, you may be familiar with the Beartooth Highway. That's a highway that connects the two areas. But we should have maybe rethought our ideas when, as we just started out on it, there was a gate that said that the place was not maintained after Labor Day, between Labor Day and Memorial Day. That should have been our first clue that maybe this wasn't the best road to take. Very well maintained, however, and it was the middle of the summer, so we went on our merry way and started climbing and then climbing and climbing and climbing and ended up over 10,000 feet of elevation. And both the kids started to get somewhat elevation sickness. I think it was partially nervous as well because we had started out with about 3/4 of a tank of gas, but we had no idea when this Beartooth Highway was going to end. It turns out it was about 60 miles, but it takes about 2 hours or over to do these 60 miles. And it's the middle of July. As we're climbing up farther, we end up, driving by snow in the middle of July. And yeah, so we're concerned that we're maybe going to run out of gas because we have no idea how long this road is. All of a sudden, it's hairpin turns here and there. It was incredible. Finally, we see like lights in the distance, and we're like, okay, civilization is there. It might take us a day to hike to it, but we could find civilization eventually. So we did escape the Beartooth Highway without any incident, and we had plenty of gas to get to the gas station that we came upon once we were off the Beartooth Highway. So we get to Billings, Montana, and again, we don't even know we're on the Beartooth Highway. We're just on Route 212. But ironically, when we get to our hotel, the hotel room number was 212 as well. So it's like we'd spent the last 3 hours trying to get off the Beartooth Highway, and here we are still stuck in 212. So that was pretty interesting. And then I'm always looking for things to read, so I start reading through the Billings, Montana Visitor's Guide, and they start talking about this Beartooth Highway, and they talk about how It's like one of the most scenic highways in the country, and it's rated like the number one motorcycle highway for taking trips and all that. And we, in essence, missed it because we were so nervous and confused as to what we were actually doing at the time. But I would definitely like to go back to the Beartooth Highway. I'm not sure Allison wants to.
She's shaking her head.
No, I'm feeling elevation sickness just thinking about it.
Oh gosh, that is, and especially like, was this at night also?
Eventually, it was. It was daytime when we started, nighttime when we finished. So yeah,
Yeah, that's ooh, nighttime and those hairpin turns, not knowing where you're going, not a lot of light. Oh man, that's a recipe for, yeah,
yeah,
anxiety and altitude sickness.
yeah. And because
My
of its
God.
remoteness, and because it's closed from May to or from September to May, there's no houses or anything on there. So like, if you're stuck on there, it felt like it could be days before somebody came again. I'm sure it wasn't, but it felt like it could be. So yeah, that
If you get
ramped it up a
stuck,
little
call
bit as
Framar.
Yeah, Framar.
well. Framar probably would have hiked up the hill to get us.
That's right, he
Yeah,
would have.
I mean, I never met
yeah.
Framar, but from what I hear, he's the most wonderful man in the world, besides your two husbands, of course.
Absolutely.
I really want Framar to listen to this and hear him referred to as the most wonderful man in the world.
He probably already knows it.
Oh, yeah, that's probably true. Amazing.
And now, a quick word from our sponsor. Newsly is an all-in-one audio super app for iOS and Android. It picks up the most trending articles on the web on topics you choose at any given moment and reads them to you in a natural human voice. The entire web becomes listenable for the first time, all in one place. Browse articles from topics you choose and start playing. Stop scrolling and start listening. You can follow any topic as specific as you like, from sports, tech, business, science, Bitcoin, or even the Kardashians. It will find you the latest articles and read them to you aloud. And the best part, they have podcasts. Explore trending podcasts from over 80 countries. You can even find us there. I started using it as my default podcast app. They even have a digital radio. Download and use Newsly for free now at www.newsly.me or from the link in the description, and use promo code WIVES. That's WIVES. And you can get a 1-month free premium subscription. You can find all this information in our description from this episode. And now back to our episode.
Another experience that we had, again, kind of somewhat unplanned. I knew that it existed and I knew that we might do it, but I wasn't sure if we were actually going to. On our trip to Alaska, we were flying out of Fairbanks. We had started in Anchorage, flew into there, and then drove up, went through Denali, and spent some time there. And then we were leaving out of Fairbanks, and we had an afternoon to kill in Fairbanks, and it happened to be the same day as the World Eskimo Indian Olympics, and that was an
Whoa.
experience. It was
Yes, it was.
yeah, it was an indoor event, and we spent an afternoon just fascinated by all the different types of Eskimo games that they were playing. I mean, a lot of them were games that, because being Eskimos, they would spend time in close quarters. They weren't meant to be like big games, like lots of players and all that. So a lot of them were single person competitions, or just a couple of people that were doing it. One of them, I don't know what the name of it is officially, but it was basically the floor scoot. You sat on your rear end and you scooted across the floor just using your feet, and whoever got to the other side first won. So there was lots of different interesting events like that. None of them which made our Noodle Olympics, because we had been done with the Noodle Olympics by that point, but certainly would have if we were continuing to do those.
Oh, I think we should revive the Noodle Olympics just for this.
I agree
No.
wholeheartedly.
No. There was one I think a lot of the games that they were playing were supposed to, like, mimic animal behaviors that are, like, in the wild, and one of them was, like, an ear pulling competition, so, like, you're have some kind of string or something that you
Hmm.
hook around one person's ear, you sit face to face, then you hook around the other person's ear, and you pull back or your head backwards, and it's supposed to be, like, caribou or something and their antlers, fighting against each other. Something along those lines. You might want to fact check me on that, but something to that extent, and it looked extremely painful.
Yeah.
Ooh, yeah. Ooh.
So let's not bring that back.
All
So,
right. Well, I think we might have time for, what do you think, Allie? One more story?
Yeah, one or
Yeah.
two short stories, whatever you have for us.
all right. So the Barcelona wallet it is. So um, we decided we were going to go to Spain for and Morocco for Allison's graduation trip from high school. And we started our trip in Barcelona, Spain. And we had been there maybe half a day or so, I'm not sure. We had gotten on the subway, and while we were on the subway, my wallet got stolen. Um,
Mm.
Allison and I pretty much have an idea when it happened. There was a young lady who stumbled and kind of fell into me, and um, I didn't feel anything. I had dad cargo shorts on, and my wallet was in one of those pockets, two buttons snapped up, and I don't know how to this day they got the wallet out of there, but they got the wallet out of there. Allison, you can pick up and tell us what you saw on the train.
There was some guy that was just, like, staring at me the whole time. I mean, I don't know, maybe I just looked really good, who knows? But I'm thinking they were in cahoots with each other because he just seemed very suspicious and was just kinda, like, looking at me every few seconds, and I kept staring at him the whole time. And
Ooh.
I can't remember. I heard him say something in Spanish. I don't even remember what it is now, but it seemed kind of a little sketchy. And then after we got off the subway, my mom and I got off like ahead of my dad and brother, and we were off like taking pictures and whatever. And my dad's like searching through the trash can for his wallet to see if they just grabbed like some money and then threw away his wallet. Well, we did not find it, and it was, like, the first day, like my dad said, "So you're in another country trying to figure out how are we gonna pay for the next, 9 days or whatever we had left."
Yeah, because
Oh,
I
no.
had the euros in my pocket. My wife and I both had a credit card, but it was the same credit card just with our names on it. So we're not sure if we need to cancel this. We tried to cancel it. Luckily, they didn't let us cancel it because they didn't end up using the credit card. We had to call home to kind of deceptively tell my parents that I had lost my wallet. So we didn't want them to panic. And my wife's debit card wasn't working, so we had to figure out why that wasn't the case. Luckily, Allison actually figured out that her and I had a joint account because she was younger at the time. And when I had gone to the bank to tell them that I was going overseas and that my wife was as well, instead of putting that on her card and my card, they put it on mine and Allison's card. So that meant that my wife's card wasn't set up to be international, but Allison's was. So we eventually were able to get money. But I was also supposed to be the one driving the rental car, but now I don't have a wallet, and luckily they didn't charge us anymore. But my wife ended up doing all the driving throughout Spain, so we were
Oh
thankful
my
to be able
gosh.
to do that.
Oh my goodness. That sounds so stressful. And also, like, from Nikki's standpoint too, of like all of a sudden like, oh, I'm gonna like be navigating and be the passenger, and then like, nope, you're driving, here's the wheel. I
Yep,
would freak out.
yep, yep. She did a great job, but yeah, it was definitely uh, okay. I guess we're doing this.
Well, awesome. Well, thanks so much for coming on and sharing some stories with us.
Yeah, well, thanks for allowing me to come on, and I enjoyed being able to remember a lot of the great things that we've been able to experience, and sometimes, throws you a curveball, but it makes it that much more memorable.
Totally.
Yeah, this has been fun walking down memory lane myself. So, yeah, thanks again. And we hope you all enjoyed this episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Wanderlusting Wives podcast. Come escape with us again every other Tuesday for Travel Tuesdays and every other Wednesday for Wildcard Wednesdays.
Don't forget to give us a subscribe and a follow on all of our social media and wherever you listen to your podcasts. And until next time, wander on.